Hello, everybody. I'm a practicing therapist and a doctoral student of psychology. Today, I wanted to go over an aspect that I see a lot when I'm practicing. I noticed that the way anxious, preoccupied, and fearful avoidants tend to bond with, their correspondent partner, either a fearful or dismissive avoidant, they're trying to bond, but it's not correctly matching on both sides. And then conflict actually arises, and those couples feel like the relationship is struggling or that they're not meant to be together, when in actuality, it's just that they're kind of bonding incorrectly, is the best way to put it. And some of these are, I think, counterintuitive, or like not, like it's the opposite of what some people read on social media, I think. Some social media, because obviously you guys are seeing this on social media. But I'm going to explain what I mean. The first one is actually, when you do this, it's incorrect. You allow them to continue their negative thoughts of you. So I think there are some like social media things, or some people say that you should let them like have time or process things, which yes, but not if they say something negative or they have a negative perception of you, because that's also disrespect to you, but it's also going to let them continue that negative thought. And so it's disrespect on both sides, right? It's not going to help a marriage or a relationship. And so I'm going to give an example to clarify that, okay? Let's say you two had an argument earlier that day. In the morning, had an argument, okay? And in the afternoon, the dismissive avoidant, let's say dismissive avoidant male, and let's say this example, the other person is a female, let's say anxious, preoccupied. Honestly, it doesn't really matter what they are, because I'm talking about the avoidant trigger. The dismissive avoidant, let's say they plan on watching football with their friend at their friend's house, okay? And so they leave 4 p.m., 5 p.m., whatever. It's very clear they're still irritated from your perspective. And you probably are right, because those who are not dismissive avoidant, or even those who are not fearful avoidant, anxious and secure, and some fearful, you're more aware of how other people feel. And even more so sometimes than their own feeling. And so you notice they're irritated, they're not really sure, or they haven't brought it up. And they left, they were clearly irritated, and you reach out. Let's say they left 4 p.m. You reach out around 6 p.m. and you ask them if they're okay, because you noticed that before they left, they were a little bit short, so you're just checking on them. So you're not trying to have a long, drawn-out conversation, you're just talking, right? You just checked on by text. And they looked at it and they thought, okay, this is you trying to pick a fight. You're trying to ruin my football night. You're trying to take over this night. You're just mad at me that I left our argument, or I left whatever, and we didn't have a long conversation for the whole day just so I can, watch TV with my friends. You're mad that I'm having fun. Whatever all these negative thoughts are, which is not true, right? And maybe they reply in a very obvious negative way. They might say something like, please don't make this a long thing, or please don't start, whatever it may be. Or they just say, I don't know. Or they don't answer, right? And in your mind, you're like, okay, I know that they're not normally like this. There's a negative thought that they're having. And then maybe they come home and they're irritated and short, and they're, being actually very unhealthy. They're very triggered and could be even immature, depending on how you perceive it, right? And so you're not satisfied with how they're acting. That is a moment where you can mention, hey, by the way, when I reached out to you, I don't know if you thought anything about it, but I wasn't trying to ruin your plans. I was just checking on you because I care about you. I wasn't trying to ruin your day, and I know you're very protective about that stuff, but I also want you to be careful with how you perceive me, because I wasn't trying to hurt you or cause any issues, and this creates unnecessary issues that we have. We had an argument this morning, so I was just checking on you. That I don't think is I don't think it's a bad thing to ask for. And by you clarifying how you feel, they can challenge their own thoughts by you just mentioning that, depending on the rapport that you build, right? But this is important, because a lot of people think you should not do that. Well, if you don't do that, the negative thought that they had about you, they're going to believe that. And then it's going to damage the relationship, because they're going to pull away even further. Catch it right when it starts, so that they can process and realize they were wrong, because you weren't doing that, right? Not in this example. Okay, so that's the first reason how some people are not bonding correctly. They leave these negative thoughts to erode the relationship. The next one is that you're constantly trying to decode every message or gesture they have, which creates anxiety in you. And then what happens is your anxiety reacts a certain way, which makes them feel pressured. I think you guys know this, but it's really important to realize that sometimes, and I know it's almost the opposite of what I just said, but I'm going to explain the difference, okay? Sometimes not every single moment do they feel a certain way that you might perceive it as. And so the example I just gave, the only reason how in that example maybe you knew they were upset is because you had clues and significant clues, right? They clearly looked irritated. They responded in a maybe short or rude way, and you guys you had an argument earlier. That's enough evidence that, okay, this person is feeling this way. Let me just go ahead and assume. We'll see if it lands, right? That makes sense. But let's say, for example, nothing happened. It's a happy day, whatever it is, and they text you a little bit short and it's during a work day. It's very likely, based on those clues, that maybe it has nothing to do with you, but you're decoding it. Oh, maybe they don't like me anymore. Maybe they're going to break up with me. Maybe they're cheating on me. Maybe they're done with me. Whatever the negative thoughts that you're having is. And in actuality, it's none of those things. Take some time for yourself. The more healthier way is kind of process it and realize maybe it's, you can even say maybe they are cheating on me. Look at all the reality. They could be cheating on you, they could be ignoring you, or they could be busy. Then look at those things. What is the more likely case? Likely it's that they're busy, right? You can let yourself feel that way. And then even when you're decoding a lot of messages and you feel like, okay, you're feeling overwhelmed, once you realize, okay, I don't really know what is true, what is not, you look at all of them rationally and think, maybe it's A, maybe it's B, maybe it's C, I actually don't know. Then you can then ask for reassurance. Hey, I'm feeling a little uncomfortable at this. Normally you're more communicative. Is there something going on? I'm feeling a little scared or uncomfortable, and I want to know where you are. And then you're able to do that without crashing out, which makes them feel pressured or uncomfortable or to pull away. So that would be the correct way to do it, or the more healthy way. Correct is a weird word, but I'm trying to use that so you guys can really understand what I'm saying. But please don't hold on to it too much. There's plenty of ways to do things, okay? The next one is assuming automatically that they understand your needs or feelings, which can create frustration. So, interesting enough, which I don't think a lot of people realize, there are a lot of videos on avoidance. I make them more particularly because a lot of people are curious about them. But as somebody who used to be avoidant, we would actually benefit from a lot of videos about anxious folks as well. But the difference is avoidants just don't realize that that's what they need until way, way, way later, because their emotions, it's just a slower lag time, which is why a lot of avoidants are not looking up how to, make a anxious person happy. Like, they don't look at that because they're like 3 steps behind. They're not realizing that that's what needs to be done. They do that eventually, but they might just ask you for whatever reason, right? But you guys, you don't automatically know what your partner needs either, which is why you look at these types of videos. They don't know what you need as well. And so when you automatically think, oh, they should know that they should bring me soup because I'm sick, or they should know to say happy birthday because it's my birthday, whatever it is, they need you to directly say that you want them to say happy birthday. Some of them really don't know, or they don't realize it's important because a lot of them have shame around those things. A lot of avoidants don't want you to bring them soup. That can be really triggering. If you tell them happy birthday, they might feel uncomfortable. They might have forgot that it was their birthday. And so whatever you need, communicate it clearly can really help. The next one, which is what a lot of people do, but it does actually push their partner away, they solely focus on emotional talks. And to be honest, even people who are married do this. So I'm not saying if you do this, you'll never get married. I literally saw couples this morning, and this is like one of their problems, where the anxious person is just so focused on like the emotional talks and, connecting and hugging and bonding, which is great, by the way. Absolutely. I think it's almost necessary for marriages. However, they kind of miss the part about engaging in shared activities, which avoidants really like. And that can actually increase bonding. But if you only focus on the emotional stuff, then you limit the natural bonding moments. And so an example could be playing chess together. I have some couples where like they play games together, video games, and they might play like I don't know what it's called, but like they can play the game together. I don't know, like they're both their characters are in the game or whatever, and they're playing together. That's like a shared activity. So things like that. The next one is that some folks, what they do is they ignore their avoidance way of showing care, and then it makes you feel one-sided, like you're the only person who cares. And so the way to adjust that is to realize that usually like problem solving, listening to your struggles, acts of service, hearing you out, answering your messages, those are still signs that they care. So let's go ahead and summarize, and then we'll wrap it up. So these are the ways that are bonding incorrectly with an avoidant. You allow them to continue their negative thoughts about you. That's incorrect ways to bond. The next one is constantly decoding every single message without evidence that what you're afraid of is actually happening. And then once you realize you don't know which one goes where, then you can ask for reassurance. But you don't want to build it up and crash out. A lot of people make that mistake. The next mistake is you assume that they should automatically understand what you need. The fourth one is that they solely focus on emotional talks, right? And a way to offset that is doing something physically like a shared activity together, right? Like I'd mentioned earlier, playing video games together. And the last one that can really cause issues with bonding is ignoring the way the avoidant shows care, right? Acts of service, problem solving, listening to you. By you ignoring that, you'll feel one-sided, you'll feel ignored, and then what ends up happening is you might feel like the relationship is in a bad place, which makes them feel like the relationship is in a bad place. I hope this video is helpful to somebody. Please like, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.